The highway stretched endlessly into the night, a ribbon of cracked asphalt under a sky that seemed too heavy with clouds. Arif had been driving for hours, his eyelids heavy, his body aching for rest. When the flickering neon sign of a roadside motel appeared in the distance, it felt less like coincidence and more like a trap disguised as salvation. The sign buzzed faintly, its red letters spelling out a name that had long since lost meaning. Half the bulbs dead. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic, like rust or dried blood. Behind the counter sat an old woman with hollow eyes and a smile that didn't quite reach her face. She didn't ask for his ID, didn't even look at him for long. She simply slid a key across the counter, her fingers trembling slightly, as though the tag read Room 6A corridor was dim, the carpet threadbare, the wallpaper peeling in long strips that revealed darker stains beneath. Arif unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was ordinary. At first glance, bed nightstand, a lamp with a crooked shade butt. The mirror on the far wall drew his attention immediately. It was large, framed in tarnished brass. He told himself it was just old glass, nothing more. But as the night deepened, the silence of the room grew oppressive. A lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, but his eyes kept drifting back to the mirror. At first, he thought he heard rats in the walls, faint scratching that came and went. Then the sound grew sharper, closer, until it seemed to come from directly behind the mirror. He sat up, hardened. The scratching stopped. A approached the mirror cautiously, his bare feet cold against the carpet. When he placed his hand on the glass, he felt it pulse faintly beneath his palm, as though it were breathing. He yanked his hand back, his breath catching in his throat. His reflection stared back at him, but something was wrong. The timing was off. When he raised his hand, the reflection hesitated before following. When he blinked, it blinked. He stumbled back, fumbling for the lamp, and when the light flared on, everything was normal again. The mirror showed only his pale, frightened face. He sat awake until dawn, unable to, his body taut with dread. When morning came, he carried the key back to the front desk. The old woman looked up at him, her expression unreadable. "That room felt strange," he said, his voice hoarse. "The mirror, something's wrong with it." Her lips thin smile. "That room has been locked for years," she said softly. "No one stays." Arif frowned, confused, and looked down at the key in his hand. The tag no longer read 6. It read 9. His stomach dropped. He remembered clearly he had unlocked the door marked 6. He had seen the number with his own eyes. Yet the key told a different story now, and the old woman him, as though she knew something he didn't. Tita City was quiet at night, but not in a comforting way. It was the kind of silence that pressed against the windows, broken only by the occasional hum of a passing car or the distant bark of a stray dog. Imran sat hunched over his desk, textbook spread open, his laptop glowing faintly in the dark. He had an exam in the morning, and sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. To keep himself awake, he left the old radio on. It filled the emptiness of his apartment. At first, it was just static, the usual hiss and crackle. Then, somewhere between stations, he thought he heard something else. A whisper. He leaned closer, frowning, adjusting the dial. The voice was faint, almost drowned in the static, but it was there. Said his name, Imran, his hand hovering over the dial. The voice was soft, almost childlike, and followed by a sound that made his skin crawl. Not joyous laughter, but the kind that seemed to echo from a place where joy had long since rotted away. He turned the dial quickly, but no matter where he turned, the voice bled through, distorted, as if it— "Don't look at the window," the voice whispered. "Don't," and Imran's throat went dry. He glanced at the window anyway, the curtains drawn tight, but he swore he saw the faintest shadow shift against the fabric. He told himself it was just his imagination, the tricks of exhaustion. He tried to focus on his note, louder this time. 3:17. "That's when it comes." It checked the clock. 2:59 a.m. His heart hammered in his chest. He wanted to turn the radio off, to throw it across the room, but something in him couldn't. It was as if the voice had hooked into his nerves, dragged. The static grew restless, like a storm building. At exactly 3:17, there was a sound, a knock. 3 sharp raps against the door. Imran's blood turned to ice. He stared at the door, his breath shallow, his body and the voice returned, urgent now. Don't let it in. Knocking came again, louder this time, insistent. He wanted to scream, to run, but his body wouldn't move. The air in the room grew heavy, pressing down on him. The knocking stopped. Silence for a moment. He thought it was over. Then came the sound of something dragging across the floor outside his door, slow and fingernails scraping wood. The radio crackled one last time, and the voice winderly, "It's already inside." Imran spun around, his eyes darting to the shadows in the corners of the room. The curtains stirred though the window was closed. The air smelled faintly of earth, damp and cold. He realized then that he wasn't alone. Something was breathing behind him, slow and steady, matching the night stretched on, and somewhere else, far from the motel and far from the student's apartment, a different kind of darkness was gathering. It lived not in mirrors or radios, but in the glow of screens, in the endless scroll of words typed by sleepless hands. On a quiet forum thread, buried deep in Reddit's labyrinth of horror communities, a post appeared. Its title was simple: "See them too?" At first, it seemed like any other late-night rambling. The user described shadowy figures that appeared when he stayed awake too long, shapes that lingered in the corners of his vision, watching, waiting. He claimed they whispered to him, urging him not to sleep, warning him that if he closed his eyes, they would step closer. Most readers dismissed it as a creepypasta attempt at internet horror. But then the replies began. One user wrote, "I thought I was the only one. They stand near my closet when the lights are off. They don't move unless I blink." Another added, "Mine crouch by the window. They tap the glass when I try to ignore them." The thread grew longer, each comment more unsettling than the last. People from different cities, different countries, all describing the same sleepless torment. Imran, still shaken from the voice in the static, found himself scrolling through the thread. His hands trembled as he read, because the descriptions matched exactly what he had felt breathing behind him. He wanted to type a reply, to ask if anyone else had heard the voice, but before he could, a new comment appeared. It was from a username he didn't recognize, one that hadn't. The comment read, "We know you're reading this, Imran." How could they know his name? He hadn't posted anything, hadn't even logged in. He told himself it was a coincidence, a cruel trick. But then another comment appeared, this one under a different username. "Your curtains are moving again." The fabric swayed gently, though the air was still. His chest tightened. He scrolled faster, desperate to convince himself it was all a prank. But the thread had changed. The usernames were no longer random strangers. They were his neighbors, his classmates, people he knew but hadn't spoken to in months. And each one was typing details about things no one should know. "The mirror in your hallway is cracked. You left. You're not alone right now." His hands shook so badly he could barely hold the mouse. He wanted to shut the laptop, to run, but the final comment froze him in place. It was short, as though the words themselves carried weight. Their radio hissed to life again, though he hadn't touched it. The mirror in the hallway groaned faintly, as though something pressed against it from the other side. And in the silence that followed, he heard the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate. It didn't tune. He couldn't. His body was locked in place, his breath shallow, his heart a frantic drumbeat in his chest. The screen flickered, the thread refreshing on its own, and the last line appeared, written by no username at all. Just black text, "Don't look. Don't scream." And then the